All right, in this demo, we're going to look at using the content filter in WordPress. This is going to be run anytime the content of a post or page or anything like that is going to be displayed somewhere. Now, what we're going to do in this example is when the content is grabbed, we're going to add an ad in the middle of it. So what we're going to be doing is grabbing the content, counting up the number of paragraph tags in it, dividing it by 2, and then taking that paragraph and adding onto it our own ad. You've probably seen something like this before and could even think of some use cases of where this might be a useful application. And because the content has this filter applied to it, we could easily do this. So as always, it's a good idea to start over at WordPress core and search for Apply Filters the Content. This will give us an idea of where it's used and what we could expect to get. So we could see in a lot of cases we're just getting back the content, and really that's all that we need. So coming into our example site here, we're going to come into the functions.php and scroll down till we see the add filter the content. And you could see we're hooking in our own function WP tags content ads at priority 10. So what this is going to allow us to do is get the content into WP tags, figure out what paragraph to insert our ad after, and then display our ad there. So let's come up and look at our WP tags content ads. We're passing in the content, and then we're checking at the very top to see if we're in the loop, and if not, we're going to exit out of there because we only want to display this in the loop on the front end of our site. Now the rest of this is more PHP than it is WordPress, so I'll just kind of walk you through it briefly because this is not really a course on PHP, although this does bring up the point once again that you probably want to start digging in deeper into your PHP knowledge so that you could do more stuff with the WordPress hooks that you are learning about. So what we're going to be doing here is running a regular expression, which is a matching pattern, against our paragraph. And we're basically going to be searching for this pattern of something that starts with a p tag, has anything in between, the asterisks, and then closes with a p tag at the end. And then we're going to use preg match all, passing in this pattern that we set here. We could also just type that in easier, but we could also just type that in here, but it's easier to set it as a variable, passing in the content that we got, as well as this value paragraphs. So what this will do is return back an array split up by everything that matches this. So effectively at the end of this here, we're doing this because in partially how this returns stuff, we only want a subset of the data. But by this line here, basically we will have an array with all of the paragraphs in it. Right? So that's what this PHP code does here. You might want to dig into regular expressions a little bit, something that could be helpful to know how to work with. So coming down here, we're going to figure out what the middle paragraph is. We're taking our paragraph count, which was a value here. When it created the paragraphs array, it also told us how many instances of this there were, and we're dividing that by 2, rounding it off, correcting if there was only one paragraph. And then we're going to take our array of paragraphs here and pass in the correct paragraph number we want to insert after. Because of how arrays work, we got to do -1. Again, this is a lot of PHP I'm kind of glancing over, but basically at this point, by this line here, what we now have is the actual text of the paragraph that we want to insert our ad after. So what I'm going to do now is create a little markup to create our ad. We're creating a div with a post ad. We're inserting our ad here. If you were really building a plugin, you'd do this a very different way. However, in our small example, this will work. Then what we're going to do is take this ad and append it to the end of, or concatenate it to the end of our paragraph. So we had our add paragraph here, which gave us the specific text from the paragraph we wanted, but it didn't have the p tags. So we're going to add the p tags back on, which it had originally, and then at the end of that, we're going to add our ad that we set up here. So basically what we've done at this point is we've taken that paragraph, added our own HTML to the end of the paragraph, and then we're going to give all of that back to WordPress. So the way we're going to give it back is with a simple string replace, because all of this markup is just a string of text according to PHP at this point. we're going to take our original paragraph that we wanted to target for putting our ad after and replace it with the text that includes our actual ad. And all of this is happening within side content. Again, more PHP, but by the end of this, what we have here is the content that we originally started with, and then after the middle paragraph, we're inserting our ad. And this just shows how to do the actual hook in with WordPress is pretty simple. However, it took us a number of lines of code broken out here to do what we actually wanted. However, if you're going to be filtering data in WordPress, this is a helpful pattern to be able to figure out where you might want to insert something, not knowing exactly what that text is. So there are some use cases where this might fail or might not be the best application, but I think it's a pretty good example to show you something that you might see in the wild hooking into the content. So I would suggest you even play around with the content. Maybe rather than trying to figure out a certain paragraph, you could just grab the content and append something onto it. Sometimes things like a share functionality or modifying the content in another way, something like that in certain pages or contexts. So that's the content filter in action. Go ahead and play around with the code, and then we're going to keep going with our demos.